want to introduce the moderator of this session, Mr. Volker Heisterman. He is an entrepreneur, an angel investor, and former manager at AT&T. Ladies and gentlemen, our moderator, Mr. Heisterman. And now our panelists, Mr. Roger Chen, Vice President of Content Strategy Group from Samsung Electronics. Mr. Apu Kumar, CEO and co-founder of LotaData. Mr. Urvi Bhandari, CEO and co-founder of Seer and managing director of Radical Roamer. I'm sorry, it's a miss, sorry. And Mr. Hanno Brenner, Procurement of Innovation Management Strategic, Audi. All right, sir, it's now your time.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Startups don't fall off the sky, ecosystems don't fall off the sky, and unicorns don't fall off the sky either. And the sky is the limit, however. I remember when Jing was on stage, I worked with Google in 2001. I spent 15 years in Silicon Valley, and there were 800 employees. And I quit. I just felt like I didn't fit in, because I'm a business guy. And these tech companies, they don't necessarily appreciate business people as much as engineers in the early stages. I don't know, maybe Audi doesn't appreciate business people as much as engineers as well. So I left Germany, and I ended up in Taiwan in 2010, late 2010, and I can share with you that I appreciate that all of you are here. I do not take it for granted, because in 2010-11, there was not a startup ecosystem that existed. There were a few underground, there was one incubator, and a few underground crazy young people that quit their jobs. And I remember one startup said, to recruit Taiwanese employees, they had to print flyers for the parents to actually get approval from parents. It was unthinkable that any of you would have been here. The government, the minister, all of you. We brought Startup Weekend to Taiwan because we had a problem. We had an investment fund, but no deal flow. Our first investment was actually in a German entrepreneur here in Taiwan, and it failed because he wasn't local enough. But there was no deal flow, so we had to create it. And ecosystems do not fall off the sky. I travel 300 days a year. We have taken our business since from Taiwan to other countries. And it's my honor to have all these panelists that are all professional friends here come in from India, from the United States, from Germany, from China. It's just impressive. So this is a world-class panel, and these gentlemen have traveled very far to come here. And I would just like to invite Dr. Brenner to kick it off and share a few insights with us on what's going on in Germany these days. And not only in Germany, I know one of your big markets is Asia as well.
Yeah, that's true. So I suppose we will have the presentation right now, or?
Ready to roll.
Okay, so do I need to press anything?
Are we ready for the slides?
Are we ready for the slides? Yeah, that would be the first one. Oh, unfortunately, we are blocking the screen, but okay, no worries. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I would like to kick it off with a brief video that shows you an insight of how we at Audi see the future. This video displays a typical Tuesday afternoon in the year 2025, and yeah, let's see what's in there.
We are in the year 2025. Our planet is home to 8 billion people, earning their living, caring for their families, and generally going about their lives as usual. But what does usual mean in the year 2025? How will we navigate this diverse and fragmented world? What will our future lives be like? Our future is urban. Cities will soak up all of the future population growth, as well as draw in part of the rural population. The number of megacities with 10 million people or more will grow from today's 23 to a staggering 37. Providing an urban habitat to more than 630 million people worldwide. Most of these large, lively mega agglomerations will be located in Asia and Latin America. But megacities are just half of the story. The strongest growth in absolute terms will be concentrated in cities with 1 to 10 million inhabitants. Many of these mid-sized cities are little known, yet together they will attract more than 370 million people by the year 2025. Suburban areas will grow in an uncontrolled, chaotic way, further increasing problems such as air pollution and traffic jams. Others will have the space, resources and time to create locally optimized solutions for development. While the most dynamic changes will occur in what today we call the developing world, Europe and North America will also experience further urbanization and economic growth, albeit at a slower pace. How will premium consumers perceive this world? As urban populations grow, incomes are also on the rise, enabling millions to become part of the middle class with new aspirations and dreams. On their quest for high life quality, sustainability will become an important decision-making factor. Technology and data are intertwined with almost everything they do, providing efficiency, convenience, and sometimes even a bit of magic. Welcome to the future. It's a Tuesday morning in 2025.
Yeah, welcome indeed to a bright new future. Well, we at Audi, we see the future fully connected. It is going to be obviously electrified, which is very important for us as a car manufacturer. It will be urban. We saw that in this video. Prosperity in the urban areas will rise, and it will be digital. And this is something that is quite new to us, because in the past years, for us, our core product was actually the car. And well, this is where we are really good at building good cars. But in the future, this will be slightly different. We see that the actual product will be services, and we need to open up in order to have the services that have customer relevance, of course. But still, the car will have the label as being a USP, especially when you are in a premium segment, of course. So the cars will be the USP, of course, but the actual products in the future, services. So what you need is, and there is an underline which you probably cannot see, but what you need is innovation. You still need innovation to have a good USP, of course. It's always good to have a well-made quality product in your hands. And we need some innovations for the services. And where do we get these innovations? Of course, Volker, you just said, are the engineers valued enough at Audi? Yes, they are. So innovations come from internal resources, of course. This is one side, but the other side is we need to cooperate with external parties as well. And we do that very efficiently and beneficial with our suppliers, big suppliers, the SMEs, and of course with startups. We have been doing this for quite a while, but this is a new game for us. Cooperating with startups is, and I bet you have seen this photo before, it's just like the comparison between a speedboat being the startup and the big tanker being the corporate. And both of them have, well, some advantages and disadvantages. I'd say that the corporate is quite good in making things really well, producing the things, bring it into series, having a good supply chain, a controlled supply chain. They are not that good in being fast, taking risks. As a shareholder-driven company, taking risks, that is something you really need to think over. And this is, on the other hand, the big advantage of startups, of course. They can take risks and they can be agile. And on the other hand, maybe, well, when it comes to build quality or whatsoever, let's see about that. So the question is, how to make the match. That would be the underline here. So how to make the match between the corporates and the startups. And what we figured is that we set up a huge study, a worldwide study in 2017. It's still ongoing in order to answer to two crucial questions. First question is, as a corporate, what search strategy should I really follow in order to get the right startups? Should I search more broadly or very specified to one topic, for instance? Should I search worldwide or in certain hotspots? This is something we want to get answered. The second big question would be how to then, if you finally identified some suitable startups, how to successfully integrate the startups in your daily business. Or on the other hand around, maybe how to change in order to have a fruitful cooperation. And we want to have these questions answered on a scientific and very thorough way. And this is why we set up this study, worldwide study, together with APEC SMEA, Yushan Ventures, Audi, and some European universities. As I said, still ongoing this study. We have more than 100 participants, key opinion leaders from all over the world. And the first results will be presented, Volker, correct me, at APEC in Vietnam in September.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this. So this is kind of a teaser for this study. We are just, I guess, in the middle of it to collect all the data, to motivate really key opinion leaders to take place here, to give their votes. And yeah, I look forward to the actual results in September in Vietnam. It's going to be huge. So this is actually the last slide here. So yeah, it's going to be a bright new future. It's going to be different for us. As a car manufacturer, we have to pivot somehow. But we want to figure out how to make the match between the real agile companies, the startups, and jointly create the future, as it is stated here. And jointly means on an eye-to-eye level. I guess that is something maybe we can discuss later. But that is something I discovered is a crucial part. That would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanno. And I think it's a huge opportunity for SMEs globally to now plug into the great engineering platform, the car, the vehicle. And on that note, to plug in, we need...
It's the perfect sandbox.
Exactly. And so we actually need mobile. And mobile is really what's in your DNA. Roger Chen, from formerly Far East Tone here in Taiwan. When I arrived in 2010, all doors were closed at all corporates. There were two companies that opened their doors. It was Google in Yiling, and it was Far East Tone Roger. He actually had some experiments going on with startups at the time, and he was willing to meet this crazy foreigner from Silicon Valley and give me time and a lot of local advice. And so I'm very honored to have you come back today. And what do you feel about SMEs and digital transformation and startups in Taiwan?
Okay, I think first of all, in the past we always say SME, referring to small and medium-sized enterprise. But somehow I think today I want to focus more on the small and micro enterprise, and also the startups, because I think these companies and these individuals serve as the frontier of exploring the new opportunities. Okay, I think their agility and flexibility is beyond the reach of a big enterprise or a big corporate. And in Samsung, we also depending on these small companies as our frontier to sense the markets. And for example, in China markets, somehow we have the luxury of it is a market without Google Play. So in that market, we have established our application store, the Galaxy Apps, to become a very strong channel for the applications distribution on our devices. Actually, in our statistics, I think over 80% of the Samsung device users are depending on our own application store for downloading the apps. And therefore, in this kind of app distribution business, we have a unique opportunity to monitor the growth or the potential opportunity of any specific application or service. And we can pinpoint to those applications, and thereafter we work with them closer, not only distribute them through our source, but rather we maybe discover some other partnership. And we can also introduce some of our platform capabilities. I think you know that Samsung has been working very actively on Samsung Pay, the fintech area. And also this year we are releasing our Bixby, the artificial intelligence platform. And also Samsung has already acquired the SmartThings, so we are also entering into IoTs. So these areas, we are playing as a platform to support those small and micro enterprise, and also to absorb their intelligence, their agility in the markets, and through them, we know better of our customers. So when we go back to the topic of big data, these small applications or these small companies, they actually become a very close big data probe into the actual consumers and markets. And their feedback to the platform can actually make the platform smarter. And I think that's how AI is growing these days, right? I mean, really learning from the big data, just as a child is reading on all the books. And we get smarter and smarter, and therefore supporting the applications better. I think later we will come back to these topics in your questions.
Yes, yes. So you wonderfully built the bridge, Roger. Thank you. Using the buzzwords of today, artificial intelligence, and of yesterday's buzzwords, big data. And that leads me right to Apur, who is just a great example for a successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur who had 2 exits, worked at conglomerate Hewlett-Packard, and now is running a very successful AI startup. So I'd love to get some insights from you about your business and what you're doing.
Thanks, Volker. Happy to share my experience and talk more about LotaData, our new startup. If we could switch to the slides, I can run you through some of this. I think it's going to be easier to just stand up and walk around.
Please, yes.
So LotaData is a Silicon Valley-based startup, and I'll tell you our story, what we focus on. We've talked about data a lot, and data being the soul of everything for large businesses, SMEs, and that's exactly what we do. So LotaData is focused on geoanalytics and deep data insights for a connected mobile world. We call this people intelligence, because at the end of the day, what you really want to know about is people, so that you can talk to them and you can engage with them. So before I jump into details, let me tell you about my friend Eva. Eva is 28. She's single. She works in the tech industry. She loves to go on long walks with her dog. She's a fashionista, but at the same time, she's conscious about how much she spends on her luxury brands. She takes the MRT. She eats at Bread Talk. She shops at 7-Eleven. And she's very fit. She exercises 4 times a week. That's something many of us find impossible to achieve. So Eva is unique, and everyone wants to engage with her. So mobile marketers, app developers, fashion brands, connected car companies, everyone wants to get to know her and engage her at the right moment with the right content. Even banks, credit card companies, financial institutions want to know more about her. But how can we get all this in-depth information about someone like Eva? Where does this information come from? Where does this data come from? And how do we get it at the same time respecting her privacy? So to get to know Eva, our thesis, LotaData's thesis, is that you need to know the places she's been to, the events she's attended, where she works, the brand she likes, where she shops, and even where she parties in the real world. Because Eva's geolocation is the ultimate truth, and it really defines who she really is. And that's where LotaData comes in. So what we have built really is a very unique and perhaps the first artificial intelligence platform that transforms geolocation signals, mobile geolocation signals that come from mobile devices like yours, and transforms those signals into accurate user profiles and actionable behavioral segments. We are a B2B company. We work with large businesses. We work a lot with SMEs and brands. And the insights that we provide are in the form of profiles, segments, and predictions that any business can use for engaging deeper with their mobile users. So I'll run you through some quick examples and use cases. I know, Volker, you're going to ask us about use cases, so I'm just going to jump into it right now. So MOB is part of the Singtel group. They are $64 billion US market cap, a very large company. MOB uses LotaData's people intelligence to understand the places, the most visited places and most visited brands in Singapore. So you can see this on the map. This is our GeoDash visual analytics. So GeoDash provides MOB with deep insights about the brand affinities of Singaporeans. And we can tell you exactly how many people have been to 7-Eleven or how many have visited Bread Talk in a given week. ThinkNear is a very large company that's part of the Telenav group now. They have very deep ties to the geo mapping business. And here's an example of what ThinkNear asked us to do is to figure out what are the characteristics. So what are the days of week and what are the times of day when people visit stores, retail stores? In this case, we're looking at 7-Eleven in Manhattan, New York. And you can see here the time series analysis that we performed as part of this exercise for ThinkNear. Mobile Fuse, a very large top-tier advertising network based in Boston. And they asked us to look at Chicago. So their big question was, for Dunkin' Donuts in Chicago, can you guys figure out how many people have been to these store locations, to these fast food joints, more than 3 times in the past month? And so this is an example of the frequency analysis that we performed for Dunkin' Donuts. This type of technology, this type of platform extends very nicely also for financial services and hedge funds, where you can take the foot traffic analysis or the visit data and correlate it to quarterly financial results. So here's an example of one of the largest shopping malls in Silicon Valley, and the actual visit data for that shopping mall shown in the GeoDash visualization tool. But it doesn't stop here. We know that O2O is very relevant to SMEs, and a lot of brands and businesses are very focused on O2O. But this technology, this platform, extends very nicely also to cities, smart cities, and local governments. Because a lot of these cities are very interested and very curious about what is happening in different parts and different neighborhoods. So here's an example of what LotaData has done for the city of San Leandro in California. The city realized that a lot of people were visiting the city from outside the city and were using city services and city facilities, but not paying city taxes. And so here's an example of the analysis we performed, and we showed them the extent of people that were really coming into the city and engaging with city services. We also work with cities to help them figure out the trends in 311 crowdsourced civic issues. 311 is a new standard in the US. We work with them to analyze crime reports from police departments. We work with them to analyze every piece of data that has a geolocation tied to it. And so here's an example of our CityDash visualization tool for smart cities. So we know how to compute massive amounts of data for our customers, and we've processed, I think, over 300 billion geolocation signals so far. And if the trend continues, we'll probably hit 1 trillion geolocation signals by the end of this year. So very, very big numbers. And A little known fact about us, we were actually incubated in Taipei City. So we were here in Taipei in the first 2 months of this year, and we were incubated as part of MOX, the mobile-only accelerator. And we now have offices in Singapore, San Francisco, and Sao Paulo. So very excited about where we are going with this company and this technology. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. And Urvi and I, our next panelist, we work together at AT&T, another big player in all of this, connecting us. And then you moved on to Walmart, one of the biggest brick and mortar retailers, and also
with a couple of companies in between.
Of course. So let's just take it away. You prepared some slides for us.
I'm going to stand too. Good afternoon. Actually, not yet, about half an hour away. Are the slides up? There we go. So Volker's been talking about, we've been talking about ecosystems, right? And so for me, I've been a player in helping to build ecosystems. And so when we talk about that, let me give you a little background. Am I doing this wrong? That's right. A little background on myself. I have worked in corporates for 20 years, mostly Fortune 10 companies, IBM, Coca-Cola, AT&T. My last company was Walmart. A little bit about how I think and why I've been working for corporations is I am a nomad. I travel all the time. I currently actually do not own or rent a house. I have all my stuff in storage in Dallas, Texas. This is important because when I look at startups and corporations, I look at the future and look at how much people are changing on how they live, work, and play. And a lot of my roles inside of corporations has been in organizations that are doing things 4 or 5 years ahead of them coming into the market. So I've always thought way ahead of the game. And if corporations don't start collaborating with the startups, they are not going to survive. I'm an avid endurance athlete. I have completed 1 half Ironman. I am completing a second one in September, so I have to learn how to train while I'm traveling. And I've lived in multiple cities. So when I say I'm a nomad, I've been a nomad since I was a child. I haven't lived in any city more than 2 or 3 years. And at the rate I'm going in the last 3 years, I don't think I'm in a city for more than 2 weeks. So why is all this important? Because when I work in a corporation, I look at things not from just what that corporation can sell tomorrow. It's kind of like what Dr. Hanno Brenner talked about earlier. Audi is no longer just about cars. They may go into services. So this is similar to your slide where you did the square of corporations versus startups, right? This is corporations. They're up there, they're huge, you can see them. What most people don't see is everything underground that's going really slow like a dinosaur. There's processes, there's red tape, there's people, right? But they do have scale, and they do have capital. And what do startups have? This is everything a startup is doing, exactly what a corporation does, but there are probably 1 to maybe 10 people doing this versus the thousands in a corporation. They're agile. They know what's happening tomorrow. They're building tomorrow, but they don't have scale and they don't have capital. Actually, they also don't necessarily have the consumers or their end users, which is why if the startups and corporations can collaborate together, you meld the two together. So what are some ways that can happen? So corporate innovation programs. There's different kinds of things out there, and this is important for startups to know because you need to do the research and understand what kind of corporate innovation program you want to partner with. So one is an Innovation Center of Excellence. This is usually, so innovation in corporations today is not a separate innovation group that works by itself. The Innovation Centers of Excellence usually work with different groups in the organizations, take the best practices, and share them across the company. So an example of this is Walmart Labs was basically at one point the backbone of e-commerce for Walmart. I don't know how many people know, but Walmart is not just Walmart.com. There's also SamsClub.com. It is now also Jet.com, right? So there's a lot of e-commerce sites, but they're very separate companies. What Walmart Labs did was everything to do with e-commerce actually sat in one organization so that they could share vendors, they could share best practices on how to do the e-commerce. Other companies that also have excellence is NASA, Cisco, GE. Another thing is open innovation, right? A hosted accelerator or a corporate incubator. Recently, actually probably a week before I resigned from Walmart, Walmart announced store number 8. By the way, the store number 8 story is because store number 8 was a big thing when it launched in Arkansas when Sam Walton first started the Walmart stores. So store number 8 is actually an incubator. It's an incubator set out in San Francisco, and they're still figuring out how they want to set it up, but it's a Walmart incubator. Walmart has never had an incubator. I mean, this is them opening themselves up to saying, yes, we want companies to come in, we want to know what's happening out there, we want to see if we can partner with you or give you capital or, figure out how we can make you successful, because Walmart needs that, right? If they're going to be a successful company and still be here 10 years from now, they need to start getting outside input. Innovation outposts. So when I worked at AT&T, I did not actually work at the AT&T Foundry, but I worked with the AT&T Foundry. So I used to lead innovation for entertainment, media, sports, and hospitality. And this is what I talk about when we would work on things 4 or 5 years before it came out in the market. So you stay in hotels, keyless entry, right? It became a big thing probably the beginning of last year. We were working on it 4 years ago at AT&T in partnership with the hotels to make sure that it could actually work. Because at the end of the day, you need Wi-Fi and you need network connectivity for keyless entry to work. So even though keyless entry became very, very common last year, we were working on it in 2011, right? So when it actually launched, I was like, oh, finally, everyone's there. So the AT&T Foundry, so an innovation outpost is an actual organization that sits out there. Their job is to meet with startups, understand what's happening in the market, and start trying to figure out what companies we should be partnering with, incubating, things like that. Another is external accelerators. So for example, if you look at Techstars, which is one of the bigger ones that a lot of people have heard about, the reason external accelerators are also important for startups is because sometimes they have industry-specific corporations that they already partner with, and they become the third party to go out and look for the startups. So Techstars is one of those that has a lot of industries. I mean, they've partnered with Amazon, American Airlines, PwC. So there's the airline industry, there's consulting. So if you would want to go to Techstars, you'd need to see, okay, what companies are you really wanting to partner with, and go in with that focus as you start to join an accelerator. Technology, education, and university partnership. Walmart has, well, actually it's not Walmart. Doug McMillon, who is the CEO of Walmart, has donated money to the University of Arkansas to create a design center around retail. But it's not necessary that he's doing it because he wants those companies and students to come into Walmart. It's just to bolster the retail industry, which at the end of the day, you need competition in any industry you go into. So, because you can't just have one company, otherwise it'll take over and you'll lose your consumers. So universities are another place where corporations are putting money so that they can get new talent, new ideas for people who aren't even in the market yet. And then lastly is acquisition. Walmart has had 6 huge acquisitions in the last almost 6 months, or 2 years, because Jet was about a year ago. Acquisition is actually one of the important things for startups to remember. When you're a startup, you have to focus on who is your consumer or user. If you're going to sell your company, who do you want buying your company? I don't know if everybody knows the Jet story, but Mark Lowry, who was the CEO of Jet, knew when he started it, he wanted to sell the company to Walmart and not Amazon. He did sell for his first company to Amazon. He went in building the company knowing that one day he's going to sell it to Walmart. And he sold it to Walmart for $3 billion last year. These other companies, Shoebuy, Bonobos, ModCloth, Moose Jaw, and Hayneedle, have all sold for double-digit millions in this past 6 months. Some of them are still in getting, the contracts are still happening or whatever. But 6 acquisitions in the last 6 months by Walmart because they want to diversify. They know, corporations know that they don't have the ability to build everything inside. So this is a great place for startups who are creating new to come in and partner with them. So as a startup, you've got to think about what is your goal, who are you trying to sell your company to, what kind of corporate innovation programs can you join, because they're going to be able to give you capital and resources. So, and then if you want to follow me or find me, that's where you can reach me.
Thank you, Urvi. Thanks for coming. Very insightful as always. Now, for the sake of the next 55 minutes, the purpose why we're all together here for this panel is really to understand how not just tech startups, I already told you guys I'm not a techie, I'm a business guy. So there are a lot of SMEs, not just the glorious tech startups, that can utilize the big corporates and the tech startups themselves to actually commercialize and grow beyond borders. So we want to explore here, not just for tech startups, but for SMEs at large, how can SMEs utilize large corporations and startups to grow beyond the borders, right? How can we set up a global ecosystem, an APAC-wide ecosystem, 22 economies being part of it? So we structured it. I am German after all, so we have trends, strategies, talents, markets, we have case studies, and of course policies on the agenda here for the next couple of minutes that you spend time with us. But my first question is, Apu, how does it feel to be in the center stage, cornered by all these giant multinational Walmarts, Volkswagen Group, Audi, Samsung? You take the center stage. Should you, or should Samsung be in the middle, or Audi? Why are you there?
That's a great question. It actually feels great, and because everywhere I see customer, partner. So for us, these are great opportunities. But if you look at, going back to the question about the topic about SMEs and large corporations, I think in some ways it's become increasingly easy for SMEs, especially if you're looking at smaller businesses in the 10 to 25 employee range. It's much easier for them to go digital now. And thanks to some of the services offered by companies like Google and Facebook, Yelp, Waze, Amazon even, there are some fantastic opportunities for smaller businesses to just go digital. I think where they lack a little is in their understanding of what to do next. And that's where a deeper understanding of the consumer, a deeper understanding of their specific customers, their target segments, and essentially data comes in. So again.
Yeah, you're building the bridge again for an ecosystems are all about bridging, and it's about friendships, partnerships. Like this panel, we're all friends and we do business together across borders. And that's how you build ecosystems. They don't fall off the sky. So the question is, in order to have something skin in the game, what trends are you guys seeing in terms of digital transformation? And digital transformation is something certainly Audi is undergoing, and Samsung as well, as much as Walmart, but also SMEs. They have to actually undergo their own transformation, especially traditional SMEs that are homegrown, that produce gifts in gift shops, and that all of a sudden have the world as their marketplace, thanks to tools that Google provides. And the mobility from Samsung. What are you guys seeing as trends in digital transformation for large and for small companies?
I'm going to go one step backwards. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is corporations, some of the corporations, because they're so big, some of the digital transformations that we think are just normal, i.e. you need to be on digital, you need to be mobile, et cetera,
Yeah.
are not happening fast enough in big corporations. So for example, Walmart or even Sam's Club, getting a CRM system where we could do personalized mobile messaging and emails to members of Sam's Club a year ago was still not implemented. And in our minds, all of us here, we're thinking personalized emails, that number one, that should have been 10 years ago. But personalized messaging on mobile, why is it not happening, right? And so you can have 100 startups who could create that ability to do that, but if it can't be implemented because of the systems, because of the scale, right, then it doesn't matter that your startup is the best one out there. So again, for startups to think about, when you're looking at your customers, you may be creating tomorrow, but they may still be 5 years behind. So how do you bridge that gap for them? Because that's what's going to make you successful.
Well, the best
But
panelists.
sorry to step in here, but then it's an actual need the startup can address too. I mean, yes, it's true what you say, that some corporations may be a little bit behind with their, well, IT systems or whatever, but then this is an actual need. And to go a step further, it is sometimes quite hard to choose from the huge number of startups out there that all, well, actually work on the same stuff. Just what you said, it's super interesting what you're working on, but I bet there are some other startups that work on their similar stuff, and well, my actual task would be to identify your solution, the need for your solution, and to translate that to the corporation, to my internal colleagues. They would ask me, okay, so why would I need that? And maybe they would say, okay, my IT system is so old I cannot need it. Or
well, we
whatever.
were literally working on the project of trying to personalize emails, which, first of all, in my head, I'm thinking we're beyond emails. But it took 8 months to implement, and it still wasn't fully implemented. And there are tons of companies who could do it, right? But for the company internally, there's a lot of hurdles that startups have to face, joining with corporations, which is what you said. There could be 100 companies doing the same thing, right? So it's a matter of, and going back to something you said, the relationships. The relationships are key. Because if you are one of 100 startups, if you haven't built a relationship, and yes, you may have all the bells and whistles, you're not going to get in.
Apu, how do you think you can get in a corporate? What makes them go for you? What makes them want to date you?
It's usually the way this works, and it's not just us, as in LotaData, but most startups that are struggling to break into large corporate customers. It's relationships. You've got to find the right person. You've got to knock on the right door, or you just knock on every door. And so a lot of the times we are knocking on every door and ending up on panels like these and forging relationships and partnerships and making our way in. So that's one part of it. Getting an audience is one part of it. The more important and more difficult part is impressing them. So it goes back to your comment. If I show you something that you think you may not find very useful, I've lost your deal. But if I show you something that is probably being done by 50 other startups, then I've lost your attention. So to get you to the point where you realize that, yes, this is very interesting. Yes, perhaps there are 3 startups out there that are doing this. And yes, perhaps some of the other auto companies are looking at something similar in terms of services. Now I've got your attention. So getting your attention is in giving you the right message is key. And then, of course, the platform and the technology needs to work. The startups need to build something meaningful that actually works. And building product that works is not easy. A lot of the startups burn through a lot of cash. A lot of people get burnt in the process, and you don't have a working product. So the proof is in the pudding. At the end of the day, you need to have a product that works and delivers to exactly what the startup claims it delivers. So that's how we survive the corporate partnerships.
And that's also, Apu, thanks for talking about something that works. What we, when we work with Hanno and go around the world and talk to startups, we hear a lot of times smoke screens that startups are actually building, and they say, oh, it's all about our algorithm, right? But the truth is, in artificial intelligence, it's not about the algorithm, it's about the amount of data that actually comes into your system that you can then run your algorithms and analyze the data. And getting the data is not always easy, which does bring me to China and to Samsung. And what are you seeing when I look at big data and the influence that the influence that artificial intelligence has on big data? What are you seeing there? You're being at the epicenter of it in Beijing.
Yeah, I think for the past, for quite a long time, that artificial intelligence has been a topic. And this topic comes back to the market from time to time. And this time, the reason why we think it's for real is I think it is going into the way that about deep learning, machine learning, and when it comes to learning automatically, and then I think whoever can supply those data to the machine so that it has a foundation to learn, it has a database to learn, I think that is the key. And somehow, because of that, I think in the artificial intelligence world, I think it is the big computing resource and the learning resource in the center or in the platform where SMEs or startups are connecting to the platform in one hand, leveraging from the artificial intelligence capabilities of the platform, and at the same time, feeding facts and data back to the platform for the machine to polish, to grow, and to become smarter. I think that will be a big way of this kind of machine learning-based artificial intelligence. And this will happen in all kinds of scenarios. It can become like for consumer services, like how do we recommend you the best fit of contents that you are actually you will like or you want at the right timing, or it can be a capability to manage the factory better, resolving the conflicts of the processes based on the past data collected from all the sensors in the factory. So it can work in many different areas. And it requires the domain expert to create the domain professional applications as a small startups and bring back to the platform, get the intelligence from the platform and feedback that sensor data to the platform. I think that will be the way for this new era of artificial intelligence to grow.
Any other thoughts on artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I would say I totally agree, except of one thing, or one problem for us, for instance, which platform to follow. Everybody wants to have a proprietary platform, and this is a huge problem. I suppose Walmart wants to have a proprietary platform, Audi wants to have it, everybody, and then your solution has to be tailored, for instance, to this platform. And the one who owns the platform is the owner of the data, for instance. So there are so many conflicts to be solved. I'm sure that they will be solved, but yeah, that would be a question to me.
So where do you guys see opportunities for startups, for SMEs, to help you in your digital transformation efforts to prevail, and where are the holes, as much as you can speak to holes currently being on the payroll for your companies? But Urvi, she just quit, so it's always great to have speakers that don't work for a company anymore, but worked for a company before, because they can be unscripted. So let's just kick it right off with Urvi. Unscripted. Where does it hurt the most? What can startups actually help with? And then we turn it over to both Hanno and to Roger.
Yeah, so I'm going to go into kind of a marketing mindset for a second, right? I worked in marketing for a long time, and one of the biggest issues that we have with the startups is, yes, they have all these bells and whistles, and we can do a lot for you, but they weren't actually looking at the user using their services, right? And so as a marketer, we had these marketers who were a little bit more creative, and you had your market analytics folks and stuff like that, but interfaces, the user interface for the employee at the corporation didn't allow them to use the bells and whistles because they also had 100 other things that they were doing in their job, along with, oh, here's this new thing that we need to be doing. Let me take back to personalized emails. But you didn't make it easy for me to actually implement it, and you didn't make it easy for me to use the system once you have it in, even though it can do amazing things, right? And that's just an example, but you can take that into whether it's finance or operations or sales, wherever a startup is trying to sell their product, it's the same thing, is that it's like what you say, you're not the techie, right? You're the businessman. Well, a startup is purely a tech product, then your employees who are business people have no idea how to use it, and they don't want to learn how to use it. They have other things to do. So I think that's a huge issue for startups, is thinking about who's actually using the program and why are they using it.
Okay. Any other holes here at the big auto company or at the big mobile phone company?
Okay. First of all, let me get back to the question about which platform, and then I'll go back to your question. But because I think that which platform is a very interesting question. That in one hand, big corporate tend to build its own proprietary platform, serving its own needs. Okay, that part I think everyone, all the big corporate are trying to do that. But at the same time, I think somehow these big platform, big corporate would be hesitating whether to open that to as a public service or keep it proprietary to its own use. And I think what the startups would need as a platform, they tend to choose the one who has been opening to more, or at least opening to the target segment that a specific startup will require. Like for example, one startup may be requiring, one startup maybe want to build some certain manufacturing automation AI application. And he will need someone who can open up his capability to a vast utilization in different manufacturers. And in that case, I think there could be one manufacturer who are really good in building its own proprietary platform, but considering opening this up to the competitors, he may be hesitating. Okay, so that somehow will limit the choice of the platforms to the startups. You guys need to consider to partner with which one who will open or at least bridge you to the right customers. I think that will be one point. And coming back to the question about how do we leverage on these startups, I think because of the nature of a corporate, to sustain the growth, to sustain the scale, somehow it makes them a little bit unflexible in some way. And we need ideas from the startups. And in Samsung, our way of doing this, somehow I think App Store is a great screener, filter, because somehow I think from the analytics, from the numbers in the App Store, I know which application or which type of service is emerging. We maybe know earlier than the markets, right? And then by detecting those opportunities, we can choose to partner with them, okay? Or in some cases, if it can prove the roadmap, it can prove the future, we may acquire them. Actually, in the last few years, Samsung did a lot of big acquisition in different areas to enhance its capabilities. So I think that is how we interact with the startups and the tech companies.
I know on the side of the Volkswagen Group, you guys just spent $180 million on a startup in China, an AI startup that you bought, and a silver car, Audi in particular, was acquired in Silicon Valley. But do you have any other thoughts on what type of startups can help an auto company, a transportation business to excel? What's missing right now? What can startups bring?
Obviously, I was talking in the presentation about services, of course, yeah, and then this would be customer services. But at an auto manufacturer, you have so many processes. Like for instance, the supply chain. You could, as a startup, easily try to optimize the supply chain by using big data. And not only the data you have within the chain, but also the big, huge data lake. For instance, okay, so there's a typhoon in Taiwan. What could that mean for my production and assembly line in wherever? On the other hand, we have a production. We try to pivot from the traditional production line to a modular production line in order to use big data again. And a modular production line, for instance, would guarantee you much more efficiency and whatsoever. So there are different fields where you can, as a startup, engage with, for instance, a car manufacturer. And of course, then there are all the services around the customer. But this is just one topic here. Well, I'd say that just coming back to you and your comment on the platform, I totally agree, and I think some corporates might see it a little bit hard to open up their platforms, but still they need to do that. Maybe not in a full manner, but in a selected manner, so that startups have kind of a sandbox, kind of an interface where they know how to or where to connect themselves to this very platform. And for instance, for us, it's always very fruitful to collaborate with startups in joint development programs. So once we have identified good startups, we drag them in and say, okay, so get in contact with our R&D experts. Take your time, whatever, 2, 3, 4, 5 months or whatever. You even get paid for this project. And just try your solution onto our system. And this is a very fruitful collaboration. But then again, yeah, and this is, Apu, just what connects to your thought, that on the one hand, you need to identify the startup. In order for that, you have to tell about yourself. And we need to tell the startups we are looking for what we want to have. Sure, and you need to give feedback what you have, and in the most cases it wouldn't match in the first place. But we need to figure out what the potential is, and after that we need to work together. But it's kind of hard because of the sheer amount of potential solutions to select properly. It's really
well said.
Kind of hard, and I bet on the other side of the pond, if I take your position, I could imagine that each and every automotive corporate has rang your bell and was there and tell me about it, and after that nothing. Maybe the contact died. It's the typical case for corporates. So in the first place they're all interested, and then.
That's so common. And I'm actually going to go back to the platform for a second because I can give another real example. So proprietary platforms, right? Walmart originally is thousands and thousands of stores and warehouses and logistics. I mean, Walmart is a logistics company. It's not just a retail company. And to run their warehouses, they still have everything in mainframes. It's not in the cloud. Now, when we think about
mainframes,
when we think about digital transformation, i.e. Walmart.com, which within Walmart is almost like a separate company, right? That's one of the things startups need to think about is how are the corporations set up? Are there, if they are like a retailer such as Walmart, is the physical stores and the Walmart.com, internally, are they thinking of it as one company, or are they two different, literally it's almost like two different companies, even though it's two different organizations. And the reason I say that is because the mainframes are for the retail side. I talked about the 6 acquisitions that they've done. Think about it. They were all .com sites. .com sites that have quicker, faster platforms. They're brands that consumers like, right? Walmart doesn't exactly have a high fan rating they have it in the mass market, but not people who are actually making an influence. So you're buying these brands that can have the back-end systems that are probably proprietary too, but they've been built probably in the last 2 to 5 years versus Walmart's systems that have been built way before. So when you're looking at a company, so if you were trying to sell to Walmart and you had something that was more e-commerce related, don't go to Bentonville, Arkansas. Don't go and talk to people out there. That's not where you're going to build your relationships. Go out to San Bruno in California and meet those people, right? So you've got to make sure that you're doing the research on your company. Sometimes it's meeting the right people and doing the research that way, because this stuff is not online. This is not stuff you're going to find online and say, oh, this is how Walmart works. You're going to have to meet the right people, make the relationships. And by the way, it does take a long time still for corporations, going back to what you said, which is they'll knock on your door for years, actually, and do nothing. At AT&T, I worked with companies, Getty Images. We were already working.
Sorry, doesn't happen at Audi, of course. Yeah.
Right. Getty Images worked with AT&T in multiple organizations. Getty Images came to us one year and said, "Hey, you're spending double amount of money because you're using the same pictures and different groups are paying for them because you pay by license." And I said, no, I didn't know that. And they showed where we could save millions of dollars. It took 1.5 years for me to find someone internally that would take that project on. So that year we still lost money, right? It took 1.5 years, and we were already working with this company. So you can imagine what it takes for a startup to get inside. So build those relationships, because that's going to help you. And also, the corporate innovation groups, they're doing that because they do want people to come in, but do your research before you actually go and join some of those groups.
I think Hanno said something really key that startups forget when they approach large companies. Startups usually see large companies as cash cows. When we go and say, would you be interested in working with an ABB Robotics? The first thing is, how much are they willing to invest at our valuation? What should be really the first question is, how can we actually leverage their expertise and channels and plug in? And if you want to plug into a car company and you have a sensor, and your sensor can only operate from 10 Celsius to 20 Celsius, you better don't talk to the car company, because you have to understand that the car is minus 50 Celsius plus 200. Same in the mobile phone. I'm sure if you put a sensor in your phone, it has certain ranges. So better understand, and that's back to Urvi's point, your customer, your partner. And the topic is ecosystems. And I keep hearing not the word ecosystem here, I keep hearing the word partnerships. Platform. Essentially, it's the same, right? So we need to explore deeper, how can these platforms be extended and opened up? But it also starts with talents, and that gets me to our next topic here in our outline for the panel. How do you actually get internal talents ready for digital transformation and for digital thinking? Like in a big company and in a startup, in an SME, how do you actually make that happen? That your mainframe programmers that know COBOL all of a sudden program iOS or Tungsten or whatever platforms it might be. How do you do that? How do you actually deal with your internal talents? And that applies to big companies and to small companies. Because without talent, no company has any future. What are you guys doing internally?
Well, yeah, okay. So maybe I could give 2 examples. So the first would be, we do have some sort of learning journeys where our colleagues from every departments let it be R&D, sales and marketing, production, or whatever, gather up and maybe a group of 10 or so, and they go to the very hotspots in the worlds from Berlin, Tel Aviv, Beijing, Silicon Valley, or wherever, and they get a task. Okay, so within the next 100 days, you have to come up with an MVP. Okay, so they apply for that. It's not an order, so they can apply for that program. And okay, so for the next 100 days, you need to come up with an MVP, and you need to well, this one program had the task to at least earn €1. So this MVP must get a customer that actually spends money on that. And well, what's happening there is that they really just like a sponge. They really get the spirit and fresh new thinking, and they get an understanding about how the digital hotspots work. On the other hand, we have for each and every colleague internally the so-called X Labs. Volker, you know the X Labs, where you have really the freedom to have your own experiments. It can be related to work, but it can be some private projects, an automated lawnmower or whatever that you just can assemble there and program there. And there are quite a few of my colleagues that say, "Oh, that is so cool! I do not have a workbench at home, and it's so cool that I can follow my experiments here." And get all the facilities. And this is a spirit that really attracts talents and fosters talents, definitely. And there are a couple of other examples.
Very interesting. Thanks for the insights. Any other insights on the talent? How does a startup get your employees, like, not ready, but keep them, in the digital age, and also think of the O2O opportunities? What talents do you look for, essentially?
So we are in a very unique space where we are looking for very specific talents in machine intelligence and deep data science. And so our hiring process is actually optimized along those lines. And unlike larger corporations, we actually have the flexibility to hire and sometimes even fire fast. So that tends to keep the talent pool very fresh and very relevant in startups. And again, I know it's impossible. Having been on the other side at HP Labs for many years, I know how difficult it can be to manage talent pools and refresh those talent pools. But we also look at it differently. So some of the customers we talked about when I presented those slides, they view us, startups like us, as their outsourced chief data officer. Now, I can't make that statement at the corporate level, so not a corporate chief data officer, but maybe the smaller organizations, and there are hundreds of small organizations in every large corporation, and each of those needs a CDO. Talk about smart cities, local governments, each of their departments needs a CDO. So our pitch to them is, hey, look, you have a problem with talent. You're going to have to hire up. You're going to have to find the right talent. You're going to have to retain that talent in a competitive environment. And then perhaps spin up the programs and the projects to solve your real problems. Instead, we can be your outsourced CDO, and our platform can take care of a lot of those needs for you. So that's how we angle and position ourselves to solve some of the talent problems at large corporations.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Well, I think when we talk about when we use the talent as the topic, I think we tend to consider individuals. But I would rather point to the other direction, more on the organization or the team. So how do you maintain or sustain a team in the organization that will kind of drive the innovation of the organization, facing all the challenges with the mainframes and all the others? Because especially for the corporate, right? Because in the corporate, there are organizations set up in the design to maintain, right? And this team of innovations or a team of thinking forward is a team that need to break the design of the organization. They are going to face a lot of challenges. They will see many things very difficult. So I think from my past experience, both in the telecom operator in Taiwan and also in Samsung, I think it's more on organize this team that they need to be, they really need to have a very strong will to change, and they need to be equipped with some leaders who are really good in communicating horizontally with all the other functions. And somehow some top-down protection or isolation from the legacy business. I think these are the features, these are the characteristics that you create such a team in your organization. And starting from there, this team will be able to absorb or hire the right talent and maintain them. Otherwise, without this kind of isolation from the legacy, without this kind of a support, without the leaders who can communicate with the other organization, or the other part of the organization, even if you are able to hire the best data officer or best innovator, they will go away because they will realize that this is not the environment that they can root.
Yeah, it's retaining talent. Now,
So, Volker, so just going back to, if you look at the acquisitions that Walmart made, those people did not come to Bentonville, Arkansas. They are sitting in New Jersey and San Bruno, California. So the isolation that you're talking about is real. I mean, it's happening at Walmart because Walmart, the e-commerce part of the business is that digital transformation. And the stores are still very much based in Bentonville, Arkansas. Now, you also need new talent for the retail stores, and a lot of what they're doing is putting in programs within HR. So HR is actually leading the charge to digitally transform how employees work. So digital transformation is not just for your customers. It's also internally. So as startups think about, what are they actually providing? They could actually be providing something internally to employees versus a customer being a consumer on the outside. So the isolations, it's really happening, which is very interesting to see that, because I was sitting in Bentonville, Arkansas, and I was actually an innovator sitting in Bentonville, Arkansas, so it was very hard for me to actually understand why people were not thinking future forward. But all the innovators that I would have loved to work with were not sitting there. They were sitting outside.
well, when I've worked in big companies, we call it the HR trap. Yeah, I think it gets neglected how powerful HR is and how HR may be still living in the mainframe age when we have moved on. But I would like to move it to markets, to opportunities. In terms of online to offline, O2O, which is the topic of this conference, where are cross-border opportunities? We are at the epicenter here. Hanno, you flew into the epicenter, Asia, of online to offline. In Germany, most people will not even know what O2O means. I remember driving down the Autobahn and losing my 3G signal. It went to the edge signal in Germany, and I was shocked. I was last year at APAC in Peru, and I was in the Andes. And I put pictures up on Facebook in the middle of nowhere, and unbelievable, right? And in Germany, I get disconnected. So, what are the future opportunities that you guys are seeing in terms of online to offline business models, cross-border, not just only in your economy, but also cross-border? What are the opportunities, both for big and small companies? What's coming next? Or what's hot right now, like Mobike in Beijing. 1 million Mobikes plastering the street. And it's not really about the Mobikes, it's again about the data. What are you guys seeing? In terms of...
I think I haven't think it very really through about the cross-border opportunities. But I think somehow in the past experience that I have been observing, most of the startups will start to win in one market and then start to move on to the other markets gradually, because the different consumer behaviors and the different context. somehow put a very huge block or obstacle to the startups to get acquainted with. And but I think to work with a big enterprise, a big multinational corporate, I think that provides some opportunities because the corporate itself is operating across different countries and different markets, and therefore, internally, I think these corporate has already trained themselves with this kind of discipline to localize their services to different markets one by one. Samsung, for example, we don't usually launch one service in all different markets simultaneously. Samsung Pay has been launched in 2015, and in China we launched in the March of 16, and in Taiwan we just launched last week, right? So it move on to the markets one by one, but within Samsung we have this discipline of how to localize or how to get accustomed to the local market, not including the consumer behaviors, but also the regulations also play a very important role. That's what I see.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Well, then let's move it, since we have a lot of government officials here, to policies. Where does it hurt? What would you like these government officials to change? I know they're already texting, very busy, sending out messages to policymakers here. I see it in the audience. What is lacking? Where do you think governments can actually enable online to offline cross-border activities? What are you seeing? And it doesn't have to be just for your company, just for your industry or for the industries at large. You as a consumer, you as an individual, not so much representing your corporation. Where do you think governments can really step it up?
Well, I think for instance, what's really important is to have common standards on the legislative side, and this would refer to everything new that's coming up, to services or whatever. That will be a matter of serious service. Let's say Samsung Pay, for instance, or maybe the megatrend. Healthcare, maybe.
Healthcare.
And if you want to provide solutions there with whatever services, then it would be very beneficial to have common standards, at least in the greater regions. Yeah.
What I also find interesting is for SMEs to not only focus on the silo of their vertical sector. Let's say you guys, LotaData is only focusing on consumer retail. But potentially there is a B2B sector that you don't know about that could totally use your solution. So how can we build bridges? And I see it working with Audi when we looked at the digital driver, the fit driver, topic fit driver. All of a sudden, we're looking at non-invasive blood sugar measurement startups. Like, why are you calling us? That was a couple of years ago, right? The driver needs to be monitored at any given time, and a healthcare startup doesn't even know about that. So how can we open and build bridges? Because that opens opportunities for both the big corporation as much as for the startup that is fighting with many AI startups that all focus on the exact same vertical. But in reality, you could actually play in a different industry that you don't even know about. So how can you find out about the unknown? It's always hard, right?
So I think one of the challenges for the corporation is that you're looking at revenues, right? So if you're a retailer, you're looking at quarterly revenues and profits. You have to make your numbers. So nobody's sitting and looking at, well, let me look at tomorrow. Let me look at a year from now. Let me look at 3 years from now. I mean, one of the challenges I had at Walmart is I literally look 4 to 5 years in the future. If you put me in a role where you're telling me to meet numbers for this quarter, I don't know how to think that way. And so I think for corporations, one of the things is making sure that when they do hire people who are looking to the future, and in some ways not necessarily isolate them, it's isolating them from the internal part of the company, but putting them out there so that they can continue to see what's out there and bring that back in. But you have to have the right leaders who are willing to support that, because again, that becomes a cost. I think from a startup perspective, it's you should have people in your own company who are thinking, or you as a company collectively, on an ongoing basis, say, let's put aside everything for a day or whatever, and think about what else could we be, how else could we be using what we're using, right? I mean, on a startup on a day-to-day basis, you should be seeing what's in the market. You need to know what the trends are. You need to have people who are thinking about, okay, triggering ideas in your head that, can I go somewhere else also? Granted, because as a startup, you also don't want to be too scatterbrained. But there could be ideas you see because of trends or markets. So, and I think when those two meet up again, right, through the innovation programs, corporate innovation programs, I think that's where they meet. But you do have to have a focus on both sides, that you are looking a little bit ahead of the game and not just at this quarter.
Okay, we're almost at the end of this panel. So I'm going to turn this over to the audience. We have about 10 minutes left for your questions. So I'm curious, what moves you? What trends are you seeing? It doesn't just have to be a question. You can also join our panel at large, and maybe you have some policy recommendations that you'd like to get resolved. This is your time to join us and make this more collaborative. We have 10 minutes for this. I know being in Asia, it's not always easy to get the audience engaged, but I'm not afraid to step up and walk in the last row and hand the microphone over to the people that are busy texting. What are your questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions? Now I have everybody's attention. Michael, any questions?
Michael Mudd from Hong Kong. Been involved in the APEC areas for a while now. I see one of the problems, which was brought up by Dr. Brenner, being that of the platform question, as being one of what we're seeing now in Europe, where indeed the large platform owners are being put forward against anti-competition laws as being an issue. So there's one issue there of anti-competition starting to affect the platforms. Secondly, what I would call digital protectionism is coming up as well, where certain economies, some of which are members of APEC, in fact, have put up laws and rules prohibiting cross-border transfers of data. So my question to the panel is, do you see these policies really as being a serious impediment to enabling digital partnerships of SMEs?
I don't have, now I have a voice. Any of you, please.
Not that easy to answer to that. I'd say that, yeah, because one really has to think about it. It could be, and this is what I just said about the setting up standards. I think markets will always bring up walls in order to protect themselves, and it's I guess the task of the commissions to bring nations together and to set up common standards. And this refers to the exchange of data, to the exchange of information as well. And I tend to say we are not there yet in our mind, because we try to figure out how to offer services, how to deal with the whole new world. And yes, you are right. And maybe in the future, once we figured out how to have all the new products, we will see, there are some boundaries tied to that. Because we cannot maybe offer these services as freely as we thought and as globally as we thought. Let's see about that.
Great, thank you. What's the next question? Anyone? Yes, there's a gentleman.
I'm a software engineer. I used to work for a large tech company. So when I was working there as a junior engineer, there has been a lot of things that I have thought about. I think that I really like this company. I would wish they would adopt, but it's been really hard to convince some people in the company to try and adopt these things or to take the risk. So I'm kind of curious, because you guys are all forward-thinking thinkers in your companies. How do you guys approach getting other people within your company who have been more, conservative or, more, slower to adopt new policies to come together and go forward?
Well, I guess the best answer is hire and fire fast. But that is unfortunately or fortunately not always possible. I do not want to take away the power here from our panelists, though, to answer the question. It was about talents and how do you move static talent. By the way, your question back to you. Your company runs on a mainframe, the company you used to work for? Just curious. But so the question is, those people that obviously don't fit in anymore in the year 2017, that are stuck in the mainframe era, how do you make them more innovative? How do you actually get them more excited about today's business and the future?
It's how do you convince them that there's a problem to begin with?
How do you convince them that they have a problem? Well, you got my answer, hire and fire.
So sometimes you can't. So companies become very creative on how they move people out. That's I will say it that way. Sometimes it's your own leadership, right?
Leadership.
And so whoever your top leader has to know that they have to make changes. And it's not a matter of convincing, it's a matter of making change. And so, again, when you look at it from the outside, people could say, well, why are they doing that? Why are they firing people? And, things like that. But it's so that they can survive for tomorrow. Sometimes it's also a matter of, you're an individual, kind of specifically to you, if you're a junior level person in your company and you want people to change, sometimes it's for you to take a risk on something small where you can show a result and go back and say, hey, I did this, I took a risk, it made a change, look at it. Because you're then putting a seed in somebody's head. And doing that kind of stuff takes courage, but you have to do that. I mean, most of my career, the reason I eventually ended up doing innovation, I started as a marketer, as a brand marketer 20 years ago, and ended up, running organizations that we were building the innovation in the future. But a lot of it happened because my leaders would see me do things without asking permission. Nobody ever fired me. I've never been fired, by the way. And they saw the results, and they said, oh, well, this is kind of for tomorrow, so, well, why don't you do this and this and this? And that, instead of having to convince them by telling them, you convince them by doing.
Lead by example. Hanno, did you want to?
Maybe on top of that, I can surely understand that you would probably try to convince the no-sayers, but it's so inefficient sometimes, and it's so hard. Just try to convince all the others. Just try to build up a critical mass, maybe with a first solution, and then maybe the others will see that this is a good approach and will follow.
It's leadership driven. I remember, and you left, right? Then maybe sometimes you just see it and you just leave your organization, you don't fit in. I remember meeting the head of innovation in Germany last October of one of the larger banks. And he said, we know that, like the car, banking cannot survive as it has been. But our CEO is a hardcore banker, and he will not let go of the core banking model. So I can bring new startups, new ideas, new ways of utilizing our customer base and the branches, the retail locations, but I will not get the leadway because our leader just doesn't get it. So at some point, if you know your top leadership is not embracing what you're trying to do, then you do what Urvi does, you just quit and move on. With that,
I think anyway, you need to see it this way, that, okay, you find it very difficult in the corporate for sure. I think the corporate somehow, as I said, is designed to be stable, right? So it's designed to be stabilized so as it can answer all the challenges from the shareholders. So I think it's going to be very challenging for you to make way through to become a leader of the innovation in a corporate. But I think it will be equally or even more challenging, I think, if you quit and run outside of the corporate and to become a startup, because then you need to convince more people, the investors, even the angels, the investors, the ventures, the partners, and you need to knock on every door, and sometimes you need to knock on the same door for over 1 year or knock on all different doors in a corporate. So I'm just saying that then it goes back to the core of the whole thing is that if you have a vision, you need to find a way to communicate your vision. If you have a passion, you need to have this passion strong enough to back up your vision. Okay, even within a corporate or outside of corporate, it is equally challenging. And yes, I think in the past, sometimes I blame my leaders, blame the CEOs, blame the chairmen, and why don't they do that? But I think through the years, I somehow understood more that there is a reason they make that decision out of their background, out of their responsibility and all that. So it's your role that you need to find a way to convince him. Or if you want to quit, then you quit and then you start to convince the potential investors. Either way.
Great. Yeah, so thank you.
To the startup guy who asked that question, come see me later. We are looking for people like you.
Well, that's fantastic. And wonderful to close. You just got yourself a new job. And it's all about services in every industry. Platforms are synonymous with ecosystems. Platforms are not something static. They're open and need to be open, actually. And that involves bringing different partners together, which then is synonymous for an ecosystem. And if you don't like your job anymore, just quit. Don't complain. Move on. Take matters in your own hand. Start companies. And for those that have started SMEs, look beyond the border of Taiwan. Look beyond the border of your industry. Look at different verticals, different industries that you haven't thought of. And there are always platforms like this one for you to meet, network, integrate, and connect. Thanks to all of you coming from Germany, from China, from India, from the United States, and to all of you coming locally and from far apart. This was a wonderful morning. Again, an honor to have the minister here. Unthinkable 3-4 years ago. Taiwan has really come long, long ways. I spent 300 days a year traveling through ecosystems, and Taiwan is one of those that have been most aggressive and most powerful, and hopefully we'll see a new TSMC come out of this audience one day. And yeah, I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day here at InnoVEX and Computex. And thank you very much. Applause to our panelists. Thank you.
A big thank you to our moderator, Mr. Heisterman, and our panelists.